only reading 2 books in the first 2 weeks of July, I managed to have the best reading month of the entire year. Salutations! Welcome to Loving the Language of Literacy. My name is Sophia Lee, and today I'm doing my July 2015 reading wrap-up. How is this the best reading month, you may ask? Even though I only read 10 novels and 1 novella this month, 4 out of 10 of those novels managed to make it onto my top 15 books of 2015 thus far. I have to admit that July was a pretty crazy month for me on a personal level as well as a reading one. While I was in California with no Wi-Fi, I managed to read 6 books in 8 days, which is a complete record for me, and I'm quite proud of myself as well. But if you want to know about July as a whole, click the link for my July 2015 wrap-up where I talk about what I was doing at camp, as well as in my personal life, and just what's been going on. For starters, just a little quick announcement, I am now broken up with my boyfriend, formerly known as, well, he's still known as, but known as Gavin, who I've been mentioning offhandedly in a bunch of videos, and I just wanted to put it out there that we are now just friends. Moving on to the books. I have to talk about books. This is Sophia, this is Loving the Language of Literacy. Let's go love some language of literacy. That made no sense. The first book I read this month was Every Last Word by Tamara Ireland Stone. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars, a 95%. I have a whole book talk for it. This follows a 16-year-old girl named Sam who suffers from severe OCD, more on the obsessive rather than the compulsive side of the disorder. She has these really bad friends, but then one day, because of this new friend that she made named Caroline, she discovers this place called the Poets Corner, where this group of 8 people meet for poetry, just reading and discussing and critiquing. And it follows her journey. She's trying to break away from those friends, as well as be friends to these new people in the Poets Corner, all the while dealing with her OCD. A special shout out to Emma Books and Sam from Thoughts on Tomes, because their book talks are the ones that completely convinced me to read this. I've been hearing so much about it, but they just gushed uncontrollably, and I respect their opinions about books so much. I had to pick it up and was not disappointed at all. Every Last Word was one of the books that made it on to my top 15 of 2015. Then I read P.S. I Still Love You by Jenny Han. I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. It was so cute. I've come, even though I've only read 2 of her books, to love Jenny Han. I have actually Burn for Burn, as well as The Sun Bright and Pretty right here next to me at the moment. And I will be reading them hopefully in the month of August. P.S. I Still Love You is the second book in the To All the Boys I've Loved Before duology, and it follows this girl named Lara Jean. Each time she falls in love, she writes a letter and puts it in a hat box, never to be read. One day those letters mysteriously get sent out, and she has to deal with the repercussions of all these boys finding out. If you like cute, fluffy, hilarious, romantic contemporaries, I would highly suggest you read it. Next up we have the book that took the #1 spot as my top 15 books of 2015, and probably at least in my top 10 books that I've ever read. That is Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe by Benjamin Alire Saenz, and just a moment of silence for the gorgeous astoundingness known as this novel. This book is set in 1989 and follows 2 boys named Aristotle and Dante, no surprise at that. Ari is kind of a social pariah and an introvert, not really wanting to get too close to anyone around him. He has not the best home life. His relationship with his mom is tricky, and his father is a Vietnam War veteran, and they don't quite get to communicate and see eye to eye with all things. One day he goes to the pool and meets Dante, who offers to teach him how to swim, and that completely changes his entire world and just the way he looks at everything in life. Their friendship is probably the best that I've seen in any YA novel I've ever read. It's just astounding, the character progression and growth and development that happens because the 2 of them have met and the impact they have on each other's lives. Then we have another book that made it onto my top 15 in 2015, and I just find it really amazing that 2 books that I read one after another both made it on the list. This is one that basically everyone on the BookTube community, as well as the real life community, has read. It's been on the New York Times bestsellers list for ages, and I'm the last person on the block because I personally did not like Fangirl and ended up DNFing it, but I did give Eleanor Park by Rainbow Rowell a chance, and I absolutely fell in love with it. This book has dual narration following Eleanor and Park and their love story, which is quite an interesting one, and it's one of the most realistic relationships relationships I've ever read in young adult fiction. Eleanor, she's a complicated character. She has a pretty bad home life with a alcoholic stepfather and 4 siblings that all need attention. One day on the bus, she's new to school and she meets this boy named Park, who is her complete savior. He actually comes from a pretty good household with a father who doesn't quite understand him, but a mother who is 100% supportive. The two of them start off as very unlikely friends because they ignore each other for pretty much the first 50 pages, but gradually they start talking and a friendship that blooms into something so much more. They're both each other's first loves. It's just so reminiscent of my own first relationship, as well as I think pretty much everyone else out there's. It's heart-wrenching, ridiculously hilarious, as well as a book that I think everyone should read. It's just a classic coming-of-age story about finding love and finding who you are in the process. Then I read the only other book this year that has gotten a 1-star from me, and that is The Cage by Megan Shepherd. I enjoyed the entire Madman's Daughter trilogy. I gave it an overall 3.5 out of 5 stars. It definitely did not go without faults, but I had a fun time reading it. Meanwhile, The Cage went really wrong because this book follows Cora, who wakes up one day in this habitat, basically. She discovers there are 5 other teenagers alongside with her, each of them paired up with another person, and they are supposed to eventually mate. They find that they've been placed in this habitat by these aliens, and it really, to me at least, and to everyone else who's read it, sounds like The Maze Runner gone wrong with aliens in space. These aliens are controlling all the aspects of these humans' lives. I kept on reading because I thought it would get better, but I didn't find anything really enjoyable with this. The characters were very weak and undeveloped. I thought it would get better, but after about 60%, I skimmed the rest of it. And I never skim books, but this one I was just like, oh my god, turning more and more virtual pages, what the heck is going on? Then I read the last book of this month that made it onto my top 15 of 2015, and that is a book that is not coming out till October 20th, which I feel so sad about because everyone needs to read this novel, and that is Wolf by Wolf by Ryan Graudin. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I read and thoroughly enjoyed The Walled City, but this one was on a complete class of its own. It's set in 1956, 10 years after the Axis powers won the war. And to commemorate that, Hitler every year hosts a thing called the Axis Tour, which is a transcontinental race from England to Japan on motorcycles. This follows death camp escapee as well as experiment Yale, who has this mysterious ability to skin shift thanks to these genetic injections by Dr. Geyer. And her one goal is to impersonate Adele Wolf, the former year Axis Tour's victor, win the race, and kill Hitler. I can't express all the love for this. Yale is one of the best female protagonists I've ever read, right up there with June Icarus and Katniss Everdeen. She is basically everything I want to be if I was a YA heroine. The plot is well paced, the side characters are all distinguishable and you remember them no matter how small their role was, and the whole meaning of the wolves in the story are just on point for me as a reader. Then I read another LGBT book this month, and that was Everything Leads to You by Nina Lacour. I ended up only giving this a 3 out of 5 stars because it really just didn't wow me. This follows a high school graduate, Emmy. This is her first summer on her own right before college, and her older brother leaves her his fancy Los Angeles apartment on one condition: to have something epic happen there. The side plot going on is that she and her best friend Charlotte find this old letter from this famous Western movie actor. They end up finding this Western movie actor's granddaughter, and chaos ensues. What I really enjoyed was that Emmy is a lesbian and there's no question about it. There's no deliberating about her being gay. It's just part of the story. She talks about her past loves and her past relationships as if they're just another thing in her life, and I really enjoyed that because Lacour did not make it a big deal whatsoever. Then I read a book that I technically read 4 years ago, and that is Out of My Mind by Sharon Draper. I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. 4 years ago, I was actually visiting China, the land of my birth, and one of the friends I met on the tour was reading this book, but I never actually borrowed the book from her, but I kept reading over her shoulder. But over the process of our 2-week tour around China, I actually read most of the book. But of course, that was 4 years ago. I was a completely different person, a completely different reader. So, at the age I am right now, I actually read the whole thing cover to cover without reading over anyone's shoulder. I think that it would would have had a lot bigger of an impact if I had read it cover to cover 4 years ago. This is a middle grade novel. I don't connect that well with middle grade characters. It follows a girl who has cerebral palsy, and the only thing that she can actually do for herself is move her thumbs. She's given a voice when her parents buy her this machine that is basically where you can type in what you want to say and it will dictate it to people, which completely changes her life because she has photographic memory, but she wasn't able before at all to say what she was thinking. And it turns out that she is an extremely intelligent person. What happens is she joins the Whiz Kids quiz team. There's a lot of chaos as well as prejudice associated with that. It's an amazing book about disabilities, family connections, and what it is to be just growing up in general. Then I read my novella of this month by an indie author that I read and loved last summer, and that is Making Her Melt by Amberlynn. This is actually book 1.5 in a series, but I didn't know that. It's just a really quick, steamy, new adult romance about a young woman who has been with this one guy for many, many years. Like so many, I don't remember the number of. But she and this guy have been best friends with this other guy. I don't remember any names, obviously. He walks in on them one day and there are repercussions and feelings because of it, because he's always loved this girl. It's an okay novella. I absolutely adored How to Say Goodbye last year. Wonderful writing, wonderful story, steamy scenes. This was a novella and there really just wasn't enough content for me to actually care about these characters. Then I read a book as a buddy read with my best bookish friends, Bella McNally, as well as Alex from the Books Buzz, and that was The Sacred Lives of Minnow by, I don't even know what the author is, Stephanie Oakes. It follows a girl named Minnow, no surprise, who has just escaped from a cult. In this cult, she had her hands chopped off. Yeah, this book was not a very good bedtime story. Point is, it was creepy and spooky, and it left me with almost nightmares when I was reading it. And the entire story is told with flashbacks and her in juvenile detention because of a man that she brutally injured and almost murdered. And then there's a psychologist who is trying to unravel the whole story because there's a lot more into the whole cult situation that investigators and police saw immediately that Minnow has the secrets to. I gave this 3 out of 5 stars. First of all, I was just creeped out. Second of all, Minnow wasn't the strongest character. And third of all, this was supposed to be a mystery, and the whole plot twist and revelations and the reasoning behind everything just seemed stupid to me. The last book I read this month was the third one in the Tracing the Dream companion series, and that was More Than Fashion by Elizabeth Briggs. I've read the first 2 novels as well as the novella and absolutely loved them. Elizabeth Briggs is one of my favorite indie new adult authors, albeit the books are extremely angsty, but that's what you read them for. They're a very diverse cast as well, which I respect a lot as a reader because you don't normally think of anything besides the sex in new adult. But diversity is something we've been pushing a lot in YA, and for someone, even a new adult author, to consider that, I really respect that. This follows a girl named Julie who has made it onto a fashion competition modeled after Project Runway. She meets this guy, coincidentally, named Gavin, the night before she starts her first day of competition, and then finds out the next day that he is one of the competitors. And that of course causes a lot of drama because they are competing against each other, they don't like each other initially, they have a very rocky relationship, but it eventually evolves into more. I only gave this 3 out of 5 stars. It's not Elizabeth Briggs' best work, the characters weren't, I didn't feel as much for them as I did her previous books. Nevertheless, I will keep reading on for this series, and if you're looking for just a quick, fun, steamy new adult read, I would highly recommend it. Tell me in the comments below how many books and what you read in the month of July and what you're looking forward to reading in the month of August. Keep calm, read on, and I'll see you in a video soon. Goodbye! If you enjoyed me rambling on about books for freaking ever, give this video a big thumbs up and comment, and if you would like to see more, hit the subscribe button. All my social media is around my face at SSL Loves Books, and my previous videos are below me.